To be blunt, I have reason to believe someone is living in my house. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm being stalked, nor am I rushing to post on Reddit while hiding from an intruder. While small, a daily use item started going missing, I blamed it on my own bad memory. When I would wake up to take a pee and find all the lights in the house on, I shrugged it off. Too much to drink before bed, I would think. It had become a recurring joke in my head after the first week. The vengeful ghost lurking in my house and stealing DVDs. Into the second week, the signs started getting a little more extreme. I noticed deep, spiderwebbing cracks in the glass frames of photos of my late wife. The picture frames usually crack themselves without falling from the wall. I started noticing that more. More sentimental things would be stolen, defaced, or placed in a different room. Wedding photos, old love letters, her old necklace that I couldn't bear to part with. All either missing or strewn across of one of the empty rooms. Things escalated when my gun went missing 3 nights ago. At least, I didn't know it was gone until 3 nights ago. I heard some footsteps and banging around outside my bedroom. Thundering steps like a torrent of a large beast pouring down the hallway. I scrambled to my closet for a weapon and had no luck due to an aforementioned missing gun. I armed myself with a pocket knife, and as I flung open the door, I heard a loud crashing like 2 cars making a glass colliding. I leapt out into the hall, knife pointed outward, as if they were a bayonet and teeth bared, but I only found the source of the racket. Every picture on the walls of the hallways had fallen to the carpeted beige floor and seemingly exploded out of the pure shock. I stalked around each corner of the house and then silent until the sun bled itself through the shutters of each window. 2 nights ago, I was awakened by a knocking on my bedroom. I stumbled out of bed to the end of my room and hastily opened it to find no one. A small and delicate trail led off into the tempting darkness of the hallway. It shone and smeared on my fingers like blood, but it was much darker and thicker. It was more like cooling candle wax to the touch. In my fascination, I'd forgotten the potential intruder in my house. It was wrestled back to this thought by the heat of the breath on the back of my neck. Each of the hairs there rose to stand on end. The heat of the breathing created a wetness on my neck, and the sound of it slowly sunk into my ears. I whipped around as to catch the person off guard, swinging my right arm and quickly falling on my butt like an idiot. Whoever it was behind me, they were gone. I quickly fled to my car and slept behind the closest gas station. Last night was inexplicable in nature. Things rose to a head in ways I'm still struggling to process. I woke up to a voice, my wife's voice. I know it couldn't possibly be her in the flesh, but in my half-awakened and naive state, I didn't question it. I heard her just beyond the bedroom door, soft and voice full of kindness. I opened the door. Nothing. I'm a fool. A harsh, crackling whisper, like a death rattle of unseen origin, flew down the hall away from me and settled in the quiet. The hallway shook with a magnetic force, almost knocking me to one knee. The decorations scattered about the walls of the hallway rattled and fell, shattering and making sound so piercing I'd have thought everything in the house had broken. Foolish, I walked off into the dark. Broken glass dug at my feet. I could hear faint whispers spiraling around me, but couldn't make out a word. Every minute instinct and every cell in my body screamed at me to run, to flee the house and never return, but and extra amazement forced me further onward. On the living room wall, there was arrangements of handprints smeared and tossed about, most dripping far down the wall towards the floor. They appeared to be bloody, though I couldn't be certain in the dark. A few feet away from the hand paintings was wet, a phobic stain, akin to the puddle of vomit with consistency like viscera. It was starting. It was a disgusting sight, and the very grime of the substance itself seemed to be crawling away from the mass in efforts to corrupt the rest of the room. It was then I heard a skittering behind me, the sound of long nails trailing across and down the hallway towards my bedroom, the sound of bare feet dragging along the carpet. I turned and was frozen, caught by the side of the silhouette lurking, and unable to act. My heart caught in my throat as I watched slowly shamble towards a window in my bedroom and reached towards the curtains. It tore open, the curtain, filling the room with the obscuring deep blue glow of the night and exposing itself to me. It couldn't have been, and yet it was. It was my wife, her face sunken and features gaunt. A mess of gracious black vomit streaming from her mouth that was stained her chin and much of her exposed chest. Her eyes were dim as the dead's eyes often were. They shone in the moonlight like two moons reflecting off of the blue neon of her pallid flesh. She stepped from the window and faced me, though she did not look at me. She stared distantly and aimlessly, as if she were blind and simply aware of my direction. She lifted one stiff arm, slow and jerking in motion. She pointed directly at me, and another mass of gory black vomit spilled out from her mouth limply. The door slammed shut with a thunderous impact so violent it had rocked me from my trance. I barreled down the dark hallway and threw myself with all my strength into and through the door. Splinters of wood stabbed at me and littered on the floor about me, in pain bit into my shoulder and my body. Nothing. There was no one in the room, and yet the curtain of my bedroom window remained open. The acidic puddle of her vomit still gurgled and stained on the floor. I had to prove it to myself. There was no logical way that my wife's reanimated corpse had appeared in my house, but before I fled for the night, I had to make sure. I had to know. A manic tremoring and anxiety hit me like a brick in the chest. I grabbed my keys and ran into the backyard, eyes darting between tree, bush, and shadow in paranoid indulge. I unlocked the shed and swung the door open. She was just as I left her. Her body was propped up against the wall, sitting atop an old box of clothes, her legs together and severed from the knees down. Her arms were positioned as if her hands were clasped and sitting in her lap, except that her hands were too severed. She looked back at me with her lifeless, dim eyes, and her matted hair sticky with blood. The blood around her mouth and chin had thickened into a dark, blackening syrup that clung to her face. Nothing had changed. She was beautiful as ever. I stared in silence at her for a while before slamming shut and locking the shed door. I quickly rushed to gather my things and fled to avoid being confronted by the guest again. I could hardly sleep. I stared at a hotel ceiling for hours, restless. What precious little sleep I was given did little to relieve my fatigue. I didn't notice a handprint left in blood on the door of my car until I was departing to pick up my wife. I thought I was safe, being somewhere far from the house, but she found me. No, it found me, and wanted me to know that it found me. I didn't have a moment to lose. I drove to the house and went straight for the backyard shed. Would you believe me if I told you the shed was empty? Well, not exactly empty. Where the body once sat, I found my pistol. I had faint fingerprints smudged in blood around the barrel. I snatched the pistol from its rest in a panic and ran to the car, then back to the hotel. I spent the last few hours questioning my sanity, questioning what I'd seen, how this could even happen, but about 10 minutes ago I heard a knock on the hotel door. I looked through the people and saw an empty parking lot. A few minutes later, another knock. I looked once more and could not have dreamed of seeing what lied on the outside. I saw the blue, tinged, degenerating and nude corpse of my wife standing at the end of the parking lot. It was facing away at first, staring aimlessly, but soon turned to reveal black vomit stained much from the front of her body. It felt like we had locked eyes, though there was no way she could have seen me. I ducked from the door immediately and hid. The knocking had become more frequent and heavy, almost primal. The black substance was rolling in pools from the underneath of the bottom of the hotel door, just as I thought my death was certain, and it all stopped, though the stains remained. Silence. I looked at my car and it covered in those black handprints. Should I risk making a run for it? Okay, thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this video for today. Now, thank you, huge thanks to the Redditor u/crustpunkdionysus. I'm sorry if I pronounced it very wrong. Please correct me. But thank you very much. And also, quick disclaimer: the reason why I was beginning to speed up for the last stretch of the story was because I have something to do in about a few minutes. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next story, so don't forget to sit back, relax, and indulge in fear.